All right, it's time. There's our tour guide. All right, here we go.
Have fun.
Thank you. All right, on our Lazy Dog kayak tour, this is Lindsay. Lindsay, how long you worked at Lazy Dog?
Ooh, probably 5 years now.
Yeah.
Right when I moved down here, I was initiated.
Wonderful. Awesome.
It didn't take long.
We love you. You can't ever leave.
I tried. I told you. I tried for a year. Went travel around the country. Realized people, everyone I talked to were miserable in their jobs, and I was like, man. Guys, if you ever come down and visit us, these are the tiki bars. Floating hut, tiki hut on a boat, so it actually has a little engine on the back, and it'll drive you around the island. Go watch the sunset. And on our way out, we're usually gonna look for iguanas in the trees. They like to get sun themselves near the top. And iguanas down here, we kind of have a love-hate relationship with them. They are an invasive species. So the problem is when they're younger, they eat a lot of bird eggs from nests and things, so they damage bird populations. So it's actually open season on iguanas down here. People can shoot them with pellet guns, I guess, and they actually eat them. I've heard it tastes like a mixture between chicken. Oh, they're right here.
Way up high. Is that one? Yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to see with the sun.
That is cool. Way up at the top there. But yeah, I heard it tastes like frog legs and gator. So how they're both hard culture. This is our little canal out to Cow Key Channel. We're usually looking for nurse sharks along the bottom. They're dark brown, very docile sharks. Oh, here's an iguana. What about that color? There he is, catching some rays. Entering an area where a lot of animals begin their life. Let me grab this can real quick. Hi, Ryan.
The bar open? The bar open?
Yeah. Hold on, let me just drop this real quick. No, I'm kidding. Taking out some trash. All right, let's go. So you'll notice it gets super shallow. Now we're in the seagrass bed. So once we get over here, let's hang out for a minute before we go in the tunnel. I'm going to tell us a little bit about what we'll see today. I'm up near this tree. Jax, you're such a good boy. Little Jax in the water, it's about 5 inches long. All right. Little baby barracuda, long skinny gray fish you see in the water. So this is a very special area, guys. These are the coastlines. This is a nursery grounds for all the young animals in the ocean. So it's important to keep these waters healthy and safe for those animals to grow up. So it's a safe haven in the sense that larger animals come back here, lay their eggs, and those babies grow up feeding on these seagrass beds that you see and hiding out in the roots of these trees. You'll see the mangroves makes these densely tangled sort of mess of roots where they dig into the ground. And so that offers tons of little hiding spots for animals. So it's a super cool spot. Definitely recommend it. It's really cool if you just put a mask on and just kind of sit in front of the roots sometimes. It looks like a little just fish tank aquarium you're watching, and you can see everyone moving around. But what we're going to be looking for are a lot of animals in their juvenile life stage. So everything's going to be a little smaller. It's going to be camouflage. So we'll always be going slow. The slower you go, the more you see out here. So a really cool spot. This is all a soft bottom. If I were to get out, I would sink up to my knee in sediment. So that allows the seagrass to finally root down into that loose sediment. And the seagrass are one of the reasons why the water is so clear back here. Key West is very unique in the sense that it houses one of the largest seagrass beds in the world. And this is a hot spot for life. We have different kinds of seagrass. You're gonna see wider strips of grass, that's turtle grass. Long stringy grasses are manatee grass, so are fed on more by manatees and sea turtles. And all those grasses root down, hold that sediment in place, and the seagrasses kind of act like a rug that you put outside your front door so you don't track any mud through your house. So if we didn't have the seagrasses, the water would probably be very murky. There would not be nearly as much oxygen in the water, and it wouldn't be able to support any of the life that we see today. So we love our seagrasses down here. We do a lot to protect those grasses. So next we're gonna go through, Jackson's just so cute. Okay, next we're gonna go through the mangrove tunnel. It's a really cool area and we're low tide, so we're gonna be crawling through the branches, kind of monkeying our way through there. Look along the roots for sponges. You'll see different colored sponges. Orange sponge, blue, green. Orange one, that's the one thing you do not want to touch out here, fire sponge. I touched some the other day when I was cleaning my boat and my hands were just itchy for like 5 days. My rings wouldn't come off my fingers. They were stuck on because my fingers were swelling. But yeah, let's go in there, see what we can find. Are we going first? Snapper under this sponge branch, and there's a baby little nurse shark. You can see his head coming out, peeking out, dark brown. Maybe we can call the bird wildlife so when we get back. Oh, there's a nurse shark right in the middle of the channel here. The roots, you might see things that look like knots on the tree, but sometimes they're mangrove crabs. Some people think they look like big spiders, but they're just crabs, and they hang out in the branches. Really good camouflage. Here's something up here, a bird just flew out. Could be a green egret, cormorant, lots of cool sponges, branching sponges. The ball sponges. There's some fire sponge. They're right here, bright orange. It's a beautiful day. It's so nice. Oh, more trash. Oh, hello. Got it. Those are my Matrix moves. Caught with the foot. There we go. So that was really awesome, guys. We got to see a nurse shark, and those sharks, their skin feels like sandpaper. It's very rough, and that benefits them because it acts like another layer of armor protecting them. It also repels certain like microbes and bacterial infections. There's another one on that side. And those sharks are cool. They also aren't very aggressive at all. They mainly are bottom dwellers, and what they do is they have a different feeding strategy. They actually kind of suck in their prey, crunch down. They have these grinding plates, so they mainly feed on crab and lobster. They're able to kind of eat those the best, and they're usually just along the bottom. They hide out around sponge heads. Super cool animals. We love sharks. They play a super important role in our food chain. And actually, some big sharks are sometimes spotted offshore. There's this website called OSearch, and if you go online, you can see they tag big sharks, big animals, and then they kind of watch where they go to try to track sort of their life, and it helps with research they're doing. And one of them, there was like a 500-pound tiger shark like offshore, and so it's cool. And then there was another great white shark way offshore. Her name is Molly, so she came by and saw us. And what's really cool too is they don't release their location until 2 weeks later, so they know that the sharks have already moved on. It's not like some people will try to go find the shark. It's pretty cool. So now the sea grasses are getting a little thicker, and we are going to come out here, take a left, head down south in Cow Key Channel. Cow Key Channel separates Stock Island, which we're paddling away from right now, and Key West, which is straight ahead. And it's a really cool channel. Before there was the bridge that actually now connects us to Miami, about a 3.5-hour drive, you had to get everywhere by boat. You had to go from island to island with a boat. And so the way they would do this now is they have a lot of space in Key West, so they would raise their livestock on Stock Island. And when the tide is super low, there were little natural land bridges that would appear, and these cows would be corralled across, or they could actually graze in the little shallows. It's pretty cool. So that's how this channel got its name, Cow Key Channel. This is a cool little inlet. We do paddle fit classes in here with HG. And it's an awesome class. You end up doing burpees where you jump off your board into the water and get back on. I can only do 5 of those in a row, I realize. Very hard. You're gonna start seeing shells on the roof. Oh, we got a nice little south breeze. It feels great in the tutu. Woo, nice. So it's a Key West tradition. It's Tuesday, so you gotta wear your tutu. So my companion's over here. You guys didn't get the memo. Sue, I'm a little disappointed. You've lived here, 20 plus years.
I sleep in it.
I sleep in it. It's your pajama tutu. Okay, yeah, you have the night tutu and the day tutu. I have to give a big ups to Peyton, our driver back here.
Hello, everybody.
She's our great navigator. It's not easy paddling a double kayak.
No.
It is
2
not.
humans, a dog, electronics.
Yeah, electronics today in the. Oh, wait, there's a shark over here. Yeah, that is not easy. Then up here, let's go around. Actually, we'll keep going straight. We'll go behind the fence. chaos, and so it's a perfect spot to have lunch, to catch up. I feel like that's the place that I've gotten to know all my coworkers the most too, so it's really cool.
I have a question from Sherry. What's the air and water temperature right now?
Oh, yeah. Sherry, I hate to tell you, it's perfect right now. We got a little bit of a breeze, and it's probably in the high 70s, maybe low 80s.
Yeah,
and
low
80s. The water temperature? See, I love this, but the locals will tell you it's way too cold to swim. But I think it's probably in the high 70s, no, low 70s, high 60s. I'm bad with water temp. But I think it's warm enough to swim in. So very shallow water here. We'll try to inch by because sometimes you can find some little critters up here. Try not to splash. I see some pink tipped anemones, pink and yellow anemones. Ooh, hold on. Can you hold up, Pay? No way! We got ourselves a queen, guys. Woo. Very cool. I don't usually find them right here. Wow. Look at that. So pretty. Let's see. Yeah, he's in there. That is gorgeous. So if you look real close, you can sometimes see the body of, oh, sorry, Jax. I'll try to get in the sunlight. Here you go. This animal is alive. This is on the mollusk family. It's a queen conch. So at this end, his eyes are all tucked in there, but his little muscular body, and then you can see his little foot. That's called the operculum. That's how he drags the shell through the water. And this big flared lip acts like some protection hiding animal. Look how camouflage he is. He's amazing. You wouldn't expect that to be underneath. It's beautiful. So I don't want him to be out of the water too long, so I'm gonna put him back in here. And the queen conch, guys, that's a really cool find because right now, I'll kind of anchor us a little bit. Because right now the queen conch is still a protected species. So we're not allowed to harvest those animals. They were over harvested in the past. So we're trying to get those numbers back up. So the queen conchs, they mainly feed, they're all vegetarian. This species is vegetarian, and they feed on the algae in the flats. So they kind of crawl around using that operculum that they stick out, and they drag their shell after them. And it's amazing. That shell is super strong. The only thing that can really get into that shell, break through the shell, are sea turtles. Some sea turtles have such strong jaws, they can actually bite through that conch shell. But the conch down here, the queen conch, is super special. It's what gave us our Conch Republic name. You'll see everyone flying the flags of the Conch Republic around. It's pretty cool. But what this guy does is when he's face down, he protects himself, camouflage, and then there's these two little stalk eyes that pop up, and he can kind of look around, have a little periscope vision, like a little submarine, and then he'll move his shell. They move super slow, as you can imagine, and they usually will live, though, up to 30 years. So it's pretty amazing. I think this one's a lot younger because that shell, the lip, is very, very thin. Yeah, let me go this way. Yeah, the lip of the shell is very thin. And so what goes on is over time that lip will thicken up, and that's how sometimes you can kind of tell the age of a conch, of a queen conch. But yeah, so super cool animal. I was going to talk about something else, and now I can't remember.
There's an anemone right there, yeah? I think by your foot. Let's see. Or maybe under you.
Yeah, I probably floated. Let me go this way. I saw some pink ones along the way. Oh yeah, here's a yellow one up here. It's gonna be on your right hand side. There he is. Oh, your boat on the right. Oh, there's one too. Oh, there's me. Let's do that. Super cool. But yeah, down in Key West, you can find a lot of conch in the restaurants. And most of that is not local. That's usually brought in, huge industry in the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos. So that conch is brought in and served here. And it's pretty tasty. I like it. It's kind of chewy, kind of similar texture to calamari. They make really good ceviche. Down here, they make like a red-based conch chowder. So next time you're here, you'll definitely have to try it. My mom's favorites are the conch fritters. This is a little baby sea star. This is the thorny sea star, guys. Oh, he's so pretty. My hand's shaking because I'm nervous. And look at the bottom. If you look really close, you can see his little tube feet kind of contracting. Super pretty. So a few things before I put him in the water. He has eye spots on the end of each arm. And that's kind of how he orients. He's just sensitive to light or darkness, so he can't really see anything. Oh, his little things. And his mouth is all tucked in the center here. So it's sucked in, it's closed up. And all of these channels, hundreds of those little tube feet will come out, and that's how he crawls across the ocean floor. So pretty. So this guy's in the echinoderm family. And echinoderms, they, a little other cousins to the family are sea cucumbers, sand dollars, sea biscuits, sea urchins even are echinoderms. And they don't swim, they crawl through the world using those little tiny tube feet. So this guy, I usually find him in the shade of the mangrove trees. They like to climb up the roots, and on the roots of the tree are their favorite foods. It's these mussels. And so the mussels, let's see if we can find any, the mussels attach themselves to the branches of the mangroves. And I know it's hard to believe, but the sea star is actually able to pry that shell open. So it wraps those arms around the outside of the shell, pries it open just a little bit, and then after it does that, it opens up its mouth and sticks its stomach out of his mouth, pushes it into that opening, and then there's this digestive juice, breaks down the muscle of the body, and then he slurps that back into his stomach and pulls his stomach back into his mouth. So pretty crazy. This animal sticks his stomach out of his mouth to eat. And that's how they mainly do it in the wild. It takes them a long time, so they don't have to eat very often. Oh, we got a really cool, there's a really cool bird sound in there. Yeah, it's kind of like a deep. It
kind of sounded like a dog to me.
Like a dog? You! I don't know. That was cool.
Really cool sound.
But sea stars in general, we have a lot. They can, they're pretty much generalists. They eat anything dead or decaying as well because they're super slow. So they're not going to be able to chase down anything. They have to sort of catch what they're doing just very slowly. So that's why they go for animals that are stationary, like mussels and other bivalves and snails and things like that. They also can regenerate limbs, so that's their superpower. It's pretty amazing. So sea stars, if something comes up and gets fresh with them, tries to bite off an arm, that animal can regrow that arm. It takes time, but they can regrow it. One of my favorite nature stories is there's an Australian village, fishing village, and the fishermen were getting upset because the sea stars were eating all of their mussels. So to fix the problem, they thought they would pull out, catch all the sea stars, chop them up, throw them back in the ocean, thinking they dealt with the issue, killing the sea stars. Well, most of those sea stars just regrew those arms and we're fine. And if part of the sea star, if it's cut in an area where the mouth is attached to both halves, each of those will grow into a new sea star. So they literally doubled their problem there, probably. So I love that nature's usually resilient, finds a way of outsmarting us. And up here we got a little bird hangout. Some pelicans, some brown pelicans, seagulls. I'm just gonna paddle through this flat, make sure. Try to find a sea there.
Lindsay, someone's watching all the way from London.
From London?
Yeah,
Oh man, across the pond.
pretty amazing.
If we just keep paddling, we'll see you in a couple of months.
And your mom said send her some conch fritters.
I found Mom. You're good luck. I just found my favorite animal. Oh yay! Oh wow. Okay. Which way you guys want to go? I'll spin my boat around. 360. Woo! Oh! You see the water here? They inked me. Oh man, look at that. That's their self-defense. Look at these guys. They're so cute. So I found them together. I'm gonna leave them together, trying to disturb them as much as possible. But a few things about their anatomy. This is their face, if you can imagine. Aren't they cute? These little growths are high-powered chemical receptors, like big noses. These little flaps inside here is their only internal shell, and that's like our rib cage, protects their internal organs. On the bottom, he's sticking to me, they got little sticky pads. So that's how they crawl and hold on to the seagrasses and algae. And they may have been mating. So I'll put them back here. These animals spotted sea hare, like a rabbit, H-A-R-E, because whoever named it thought those little growths on its face looked like bunny ears. Oh, there he is again. So these guys crawl through the waters here, and they eat algae and seagrass. And it's pretty special when we find them because they only visit us for half the year. They'll start disappearing. The summer times, they go into deeper waters or they die off. They don't have a super long lifespan. So I'm always super grateful when I find these animals. They're really cool. They mainly come up here for their breeding season. So what they do is they are hermaphrodites. They have male and female reproductive organs. That helps increase their chances of reproducing. And they'll hook up into these mating chains. And once the one lays the eggs, it's really cool. It looks like you took a can of silly string and just sprayed it all in a clump. And it looks like that right underwater. So it's pretty awesome. And they're super camouflage, right? So that's why you really have to go slow when you're looking for these animals. They'll get a little bigger than this, not too much bigger. And the ink, right? We have to talk about that. It's pretty amazing. They have this bright purple ink. Believe it or not, they're not actually related to octopus. So it's a different sort of mechanism happening with the ink. And what it does is that ink expels and it hides their location or it freaks out a predator, right? This animal's very slow, very squishy. A lot of things are able to hunt and feed on this thing. So they have to come up with a cool way to protect themselves. The algae's going over them. So the ink also, it's funny, it's kind of like the color of my scrunchie, right? You see some on my legs. It actually has a strong scent attached to it. It kind of smells good. It smells good to us. It smells like flowers or potpourri. And when I say this to my tours, they do not believe me, and everyone's hesitant to smell their hands because they think I'm just trying to talk them into something. But no, it's literally smells really good, and that is another defense mechanism. So in the ocean, animals are attracted to rotting, stinky smells because that indicates something yummy is there for them to eat. So when the animal smells this foreign floral scent, it doesn't really indicate dinner or seem like something good to eat. So they usually leave the animal alone. So this guy protects himself by tricking the predators. It's pretty cool. And there's different species of these all over. Most common, oh yeah, the ragged sea hare, we get those sometimes. All right. So I will keep going south. Oh man, one time I found a baby octopus and it was like a dream come true. He's so cute and he was just crawling through the sea grasses and he was very relaxed, and I knew that because he was kind of white in color. I guess that's something they do when they're super relaxed, and so it was just kind of the right timing and he stood out against sea grasses, but I bet there's a lot of octopuses down here. That was one of the crazy things. One time, another funny kind of animal blooper that I saw was there's a lot of really cool spotted eagle rays or stingrays in the waters down here. And I had come upon a spotted eagle ray and I spooked it with my kayak and he took off and he went straight into one of the channel markers. He like ran into it and it was almost like in a cartoon where the thing just like boing, but he was fine. He like took off, but it was great. I've run into a few poles and walls in my life, so I know how it feels. A lot of manatees lately. I don't know. We'll just keep our eyes out. Those are the most sought after animals down here to see. They're very lovable, big gray mammals, and they just feed on the sea seagrass all day. Eat up to 30 pounds of seagrass a day. We'll go through another flat area. See if we can find some more critters.
What do you find is the most enjoyable thing about living in Key West?
The most enjoyable. It's either going for like a little dinghy ride in my slow boat, which I've been doing often. And
where do you live?
And I live on a houseboat. I live in the water, offshore in Key West. It's pretty special. They allow you to anchor in certain areas. So I literally live on a floating home, and I sometimes never have to touch land, like if I drive my boat to work. So I love being on the water. Tons of seagrass.
Are there different types of seagrass?
There are different types of seagrass. So the one we're seeing mainly is the thicker grass. That is the turtle grass. And then the long stringy grass is going to be manatee grass. And these grasses are so productive sometimes in the summer. They get so much sunlight that the oxygen they're producing, you can watch it bubbling out of the grass. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, huge food source. The seagrass unfortunately takes so long to regrow. So it takes about 5 years for seagrass to regrow. Oh, and I found a little animal below you guys. I think it's called a tulip snake. Oh, he's beautiful. So in the Keys, it's amazing to find these animals. You can see his big, so in the mollusk family, you can see his soft body with the hard operculum, and then his little hideout here. It's beautiful. His little eyes too will sometimes poke up in there. And I believe these aren't just vegetarians. I think these do eat are carnivores. Beautiful, super cool. All right, I'll let you go about your day. Oh, here we go. A lot of people, when they're on the tour, they ask what all the holes are in the mud, the sandy bottom. And those are little homes to animals. So a lot of times animals dig those out, burrow in there, little fish, crabs, sea cucumbers. It's just a little safe haven, kind of little tunnel network under there. There we go, nice little breeze again. Breeding season, I believe. So for nurse sharks and things. So that's when you get a lot bigger nurse sharks back here. It's pretty cool. The green parrot crew, they come out every Sunday or any day now. It's on Facebook, yeah. Are we Facebook friends? Okay, good. So now I'm actually standing. So it gets hard, it's harder bottom, a little more offshore. And that allows for more sponges to grow because sponges are stationary animals. They have to attach to a hard substrate to live. There's a couple here, really cool, look like donuts, right? Look like big gray donuts with a black hole in the middle. And oh yeah, here, I'll pull you guys so I can help out. Yeah. And so that's a loggerhead sponge. Sponges are amazing. They're constantly filtering the water. So that's how they perform all of their life processes. So they suck water in through their sides, then they eat or trap anything in their little microorganisms, and they shoot the water out the top. So that sponge would be completely black, but since it's pulling that water in through the sides, that's what attracts the silt and whatnot along the outside of it. We also get some other anemones, some other algae and seagrasses in here. And sponges, this is Key West used to be a huge sponging community. It was a large industry. We didn't always have our Scotch-Brite sponges, right, that are near every sink in our house. Those were created after World War II. So before that, the sponges were used as that cleaning agent, as anything in the shower, lots of good uses for them. So we don't have as much of a demand for sponges anymore. But we have tons of different species down here of the sponges. Loggerheads are very common. A sponge the size of my fist will filter over 1,600 gallons of water a day. That's about Olympic-sized pool. So it's pretty incredible. So that could factor into the water clarity and quality down here as well. Sponges are interesting in the sense too that they can't really defend themselves, right? Because they're stuck in place. So a lot of sponges, they have these tiny little things embedded in their tissues called spicules. And if you break open a sponge, you get them, they embed in your hand. It feels like fiberglass. So any fish biting off that sponge, eating it, is gonna get that in their mouth, and it's gonna condition them to leave the sponges alone. So that's kind of how they defend themselves. It's pretty cool. And we'll keep an eye out. They like to grow and collect on the roots of the trees as well. So that's another good hot spot to look for them. But nowadays, the people down here, you can get a sponging certificate to collect sponges. Mainly a lot of the guys and girls do, they have like low, very shallow draft boats, a long pole with a rake at the end, and then they rake along the ocean floor, see a sponge, and they kind of pop it off using their rake. And then they have to go through a long drying process and preparing it, processing it to kind of be sold in the store. Yeah, I was looking for, oh, hold on. Oh no, this is a part of a sponge that's broken off. Once sponges are broken off, they aren't alive anymore, unfortunately. But this is the piece that I just found. And it's wild, right? So here, you might be able to see a shell that may be encrusted in the sponge. And other sponges will live on top of other sponges. So it's kind of like a whole micro community of sponge too. So inside here could now be a home to a crab, other animals. There's channels in there. So I've dissected a sponge before and found an octopus, found a crab. Jax doesn't know what to think about it. Animal encounters. All right, maybe we should go over to the hurricane hole and get in some mangroves for a minute. Near the bottom of sponges. They like to hide up, tuck their butts up against the sponge, and that's where they have protection from behind. Today is the last day of lobster season in Key West, so some of our friends are on their way out to try to catch a few lobster before the season ends, April 1st, until really late July, and that gives the lobster population time to grow, time to reproduce before the season opens again. We have the spiny lobster. So what's interesting is this lobster doesn't have the big claws like the main lobster. And you just use a little tickle stick in a net, it's called. And it's literally just a long pole and a net, and you have to kind of tickle them, confuse them from the front, and then they move their tails, shoot their tail, and they usually, hypothetically, are supposed to shoot into your net, but I haven't been so lucky the last few times I went lobstering. I need a little more help in that area. Very shallow water again. We came out at low tide. Low tide is an awesome sort of time of day to get out on the water because you can see a lot more. Usually the visibility is usually better. Usually a little calmer in the mornings as well. where a manatee's nipple is? What part of their body? Peyton, do you know where it is?
I don't.
It's under their armpit. It's in their armpit. And it was so cute. I saw a mom manatee and a baby. And the baby just wouldn't leave her armpit alone. I thought maybe she was nestled in there. And believe it or not, she was nursing. So they kind of like, I guess maybe it's good their flipper can kind of hold the baby in place. And it was feeding the baby. I thought that was crazy. Nature is wild. Oh yeah, and then let me go over here, see if we can find anything near the tree. So now you're gonna see more of that manatee grass. It definitely looks different than the wider, thicker turtle grass. Along here is a great spot to look for more of the queen conch. Usually I find some back here. But I have another creature in mind that usually hangs out. Try to find them. Wow. So yeah, you see when you get out of the wind, it's just insane. It's so glassy, the water. See all those little burrowing holes now in the ground. Oh, here's a good one. We'll make a stop here. Scoop up this animal. Luckily for me, he's not very quick. So, what do I have in here? This is the one that usually confuses most people because it doesn't look like your typical species. So cool. This is a jellyfish. It's in Cassiopeia. Oh, and I can kind of feel its stinging cells today. So this is upside down jellyfish. And what this animal, he or she, they rest along the bottom. And this is the part you see. So it looks like a clump of seagrass. Super good camouflage. And you'll see he'll start pulsing and he'll be moving his way back to the ocean floor. What happens is they're not very strong swimmers. So if they get caught in a current, that current is going to determine where they go. So they usually find nice, shallow, calm water like this, and that's where they spend most of their life. And what they do is, most jellyfish use those stinging cells to trap their prey, right? To get their food. And then they absorb those little animals that they paralyze into their stomach. But this animal actually forms a symbiotic relationship with a type of algae. So really cool process happening here. In the ocean, survival is really hard. So animals and plants, they'll partner up to make survival easier. So this one, this algae, finds a nice home in the tissues of those tentacles that you saw facing the sun. And what happens is that algae starts growing, and in exchange for having that home inside the jellyfish tentacles, the jellyfish, it gives all day the algae is getting sunlight and it can photosynthesize, making food. And at the end of the day, it gives some of that food to the jellyfish. So they have this nice symbiosis happening where they each are benefiting from this relationship. So it's super cool. And most of the time, these jellyfish, they're super lazy, right? They can just hang out at the bottom, grow some algae on them, and have food. So they call them the farmers of the sea for that reason too. Tons of jellyfish. Jellyfish are fascinating. They're one of the first animals to colonize in the ocean. And some scientists believe they will be the last because water conditions keep changing, temperature changes, and these animals can adapt to all those changing conditions very quickly. Anyone know whose favorite food jellyfish is?
Pick
You know.
me.
What did he say?
Sea turtles.
You're right. Sea turtles. So what's funny about this too is sea turtles, they love eating jellyfish. And that's why if you ever see plastic bags in the water, you want to try to take them out because the sea turtle will confuse that with a jellyfish and will eat it. And then that can get all stuck in their digestive system and can make them very sick. But we've also found what's pretty funny is jellyfish, they contain their stinging cells, contain some sort of toxins, right? And those toxins react to sea turtles, and to sea turtles, researchers have found it makes them feel like they're drunk. So the sea turtles like eating the jellyfish for the same reason we like going to happy hour. It's pretty great. So they like to party too down here in Key West, the sea turtles. But that one, like I said, those don't have strong stinging cells, so you don't have to worry as much. My hand's a little itchy, but once you rinse it off, it goes away. Flat water, and maybe I can find a sea cucumber. See lots of little sea stars in the grass. That's a good sign. Yeah, Sue, you're going to explain in our next video, right, how Jax became this great paddle companion?
Yeah, buddy, we're talking about you.
We're talking about you. He's like, stop it. One of our favorite things to do at Lazy Dog is to interpret our dogs' voices. Each of our dogs have a very specific voice. And Sue thinks, I think, right? Sue thinks Jax is his buddy from Elf. Is that right, Sue?
That's right.
Peyton, what's Willow's voice?
This weird voice I make up.
Oh, this weird voice. Hers is very unique. I still don't have a dog. I just dog sit everyone's dog. So if you need a dog to be dog sat, let me know. And I'll happily watch your dog.
So when I didn't have my dog, I told Sue I was gonna bring my pet fish to work and we'd have our first lazy fish.
Lazy fish! You could have like the little aquarium right here.
Yeah.
I was thinking of getting a cat, really rival a lazy cat. All right, let's see. Super flat water. See our jellyfish, the Cassiopeia, upside down jellyfish that we just found. Lots of them over here. Oh, here they are. Oh no, maybe not. Oh, it doesn't look like them. Nope, tricked. I thought it was a sea cucumber. It was a root to a mangrove. Well, when all else fails, you just start laying down like this and you just kind of feel for them. This is another method. Because they're burrowing animals, so they burrow in the seagrass. Let's see. Oh, yep, here's one. Look at the little smiley face. This guy's so pretty. So I'll come over to you. So this is related to that starfish, another echinoderm. Very, those aren't like spiky at all. Very soft. All of his feet, tube feet, are all these clear little structures right there. Those are how he crawls around. Let's see, here's his mouth right here. He just goes along the bottom like a little vacuum cleaner, sucks up mud, eats things in the sediment. And they burrow down in the mud. So in the summertime, it's harder to find them because it's so hot. They're trying to escape the sun like us. So they burrow deep in the mud. That's how they hide too, right? From being eaten. Any predators. This animal actually is highly sought out in certain countries. It's a delicacy. They harvest these because it sort of has all these special properties. It has high amounts of glucosamine, good for our joints. It has a lot of good collagen, that naturally occurring pigment or substance in our skin that makes it nice and soft and wrinkle-free. So most of our guys, they like to rub it on their face. Gives them some extra collagen. No, I don't think it works that way, but you can try it. And this guy will just crawl around. And most of the time, it is in the dirt. But if it's exposed, how it defends itself. So, as a last resort, this animal will do something called evisceration, another wild superpower of nature. And say a predator will bite into this animal, the animal knows it's a fight or flight kind of response. So he expels an organ outside of his body. He kind of throws up an organ sac. And the organ is wrapped in a toxic lining. So immediately the predator is distracted by this sac and it looks really tasty like fish eggs. So the predator bites into that sac and it tastes those toxins and kind of alarms go off saying, whoa, this is bad for you. It's kind of like when we eat like a really spicy pepper or something that's gone bad, we know immediately that we're not supposed to eat that. So that's what happens to the predator, and he lets the animal go. This guy will burrow down in the mud and regrow the organ. So again, he can regenerate. This guy can regenerate organs. The sea star can regenerate arms. Pretty cool. Another fun fact about this animal is its relationship with the pearl fish. So like I was talking about, a lot of animals form these symbiotic relationships with each other. Well, I'm not sure where this one classifies because one benefits more than the other. But one of our guides had picked up a sea cucumber and out flew this tiny little fish from one end of the cucumber. And they were super confused, never seen this happen before. They looked it up, and there's actually this tiny fish called the pearl fish, and he lives up the butt of the sea cucumber. So in the ocean, they need hideout spots. So this animal, this fish, would tuck up into the butt of the sea cucumber, hide out there in the day. At night, it'll come out and feed. So I'm not sure how the sea cucumber feels about it, but the pearlfish likes this relationship. And yeah, so it's fascinating. You never know where animals are hiding or what's going on, and it's that's why this job's always exciting too. Something new happens every day.
My good friend Holly told me this joke.
Oh yeah.
What is a sea cucumber's favorite sibling?
What is it, Peyton?
Her sister.
Her sister. Oh,
I love that joke.
I love it. All right, so we're gonna go down. This is my favorite tidal creek. Keep the jokes coming too online. Send us your best marine joke, ocean joke. And we're gonna go down the tidal creek. So these creeks are formed naturally. It's amazing down here in the Keys. The water takes the pathway of least resistance through the mangrove trees. Actually, yeah, why don't we go right in, and then in that little area I can talk a little bit about the mangrove before we go through the long tunnel. I can't leave you guys before telling you about the mangroves. We love our mangrove trees down here. This is the red mangrove. It's the most common mangrove that lives in or near the coastline. Fascinating, right? Most trees need fresh water to grow. This tree has formed crazy adaptations to allow it to filter salt from the water. So at the base of the roots, you're gonna notice these white bumps in the water line. Those white bumps are each pores into the tree root system. Once the water gets in there, it's these fine filters filter out the salt from the water, making fresh water so this tree can grow. But most of the time, the roots, they don't get out all of the salt. Super salty water here in Key West, one of the saltiest water in the world. So what happens is the red mangrove dedicates specific leaves on each branch. You're gonna see them, they're scattered, they're yellow leaves scattered throughout the canopy. Those leaves are referred to as the sacrificial leaf. If the roots don't get rid of all the salt, the tree pushes that salt into those specific leaves they designate, and those leaves sacrifice themselves, kind of taking one for the team, turn yellow, and die, and those salt suckers fall down into the water then, and the tree has fresh water to grow. So it's pretty amazing. The tree has figured out how to adapt to the salty conditions here that most trees won't be able to live in. And they harbor so much life, right? On the roots are the seagrass, the mussels, the anemones, hiding place for fish. In the canopy are the crabs and all the birds, the roosting birds, nesting birds. Really good hunting spot for most egrets and herons are right perched on these branches. And the number one thing they do for us is protect us from hurricanes. So this tree can take over 130 mile-per-hour winds. This is super important nowadays, especially when the hurricane seasons are more frequent and more intense. We really need this line of protection. In Florida, realize this. All the mangroves in Florida are protected. So you're not allowed to trim the tree on your property now without a permit. And that just keeps these intact and keeps them growing because they produce sort of our first barrier against that storm. So very grateful for these trees. And there's red, white, and black mangroves in Florida. These are mainly all red mangroves. So through here, I was gonna let you guys take the lead because it's kind of pretty cool being a first person view through there. And I will holler if I see anything cool. woman recently paddleboarded from Cuba to Key West. Sue was there on the beach when she arrived, weren't you, Sue?
Yeah, Victoria Burgess.
Amazing.
And Cynthia Aguilar did it with a prone paddleboard.
Oh, nice. And Diane Naya.
Diane Naya did it as a swimmer, yeah.
Swam.
Hardcore women. Yeah.
See a trend here. But guys, we really made this video because we miss you. So please come see us when it's safe and everyone's sound and you're able to come to the Keys again. We'd love to have you. We do all different tours, and probably some of you tuning in have already been here before, so come see us again. We're all over the internet. We're on Lazy Dog Key West. Is our Instagram, lazydog.com. You can find all of our tours and classes and boat trips. And yeah, you can schedule ones for in the future if you're already planning a trip down here. But we love having you. Thanks for joining us.